I'm building a bathroom in the tiny home that I've been making, and I'm going to bring you along for the entire process. I started by installing some of this R13 insulation in between all the studs. This bathroom's 3.5 feet wide by 8 feet long, which is small, but we came up with a pretty badass design that should make this tiny home bathroom feel somewhat luxurious. After installing the insulation, I picked up a bunch of pieces of shiplap and started cutting them down to size. I then brought them into the tiny home and started installing them onto the wall with my 18 gauge finish nailer. Each piece of shiplap ran me $10 and I needed a total of 32 of them, which brings the total to $320 to cover the walls of this bathroom, which is pretty expensive, but it's better than having to install sheetrock and spending days sanding and mudding everything, which makes spending the extra money worth it to me. After installing the shiplap, I figured it was a good idea to start painting the walls so I don't accidentally get white paint on anything. Now that I have all the shiplap installed and painted, I'm going to go ahead and install the mixer valve for the shower head right here. Now I'm going to have to remove some of this insulation to get access to it, but I'll go ahead and install it back on after I install the mixer valve. I installed a piece of blocking onto the wall where the mixer valve is going to go, and it's exactly 1 inch thick to allow the mixer valve to pop out of the wall just enough to be able to put the handle on. I made sure it was plumb and square, then secured it onto the blocking. I then ran the cold and hot water lines to the mixer valve and the drop ear. For the drop ear, I also added a piece of blocking so it pops out of the wall enough, then wrapped the threads in Teflon tape before screwing it onto the PEX fitting. I then screwed it into the blocking exactly 6 feet 4 inches off the ground. So it's finally time to install the shower base, and we're getting a custom one made from my guys at Encompass shower base. So I'm gonna hit them up right now and find out where the hell this thing is. Yo.
What's up?
Hey, question. I'm just calling to check up on that shower base. See how it's coming along.
Absolutely, man. We just finished it up. Made it custom for you. Here it is right here.
Amazing, dude.
And we're gonna ship that out to you right away, okay? You'll get it in a couple days.
Hell yeah, man. I love it.
So, gonna throw in one of these too. This is that wall shower niche we were talking about. And it's totally waterproof. Made out of that Corian solid surface too. You can put that in the wall. That way the whole thing is waterproof, all right?
Dude, that looks amazing, man. That looks great. I can't wait to get it.
Awesome. It'll be there soon. Talk to you later, Manny.
All right, dude. Peace. Can't wait to get it.
1 week later.
We finally got the shower base.
The reason we wanted to get one of these shower bases is because the installation process is about 10 times faster than installing a traditional shower base. You just have to drill a hole for the plumbing pipe, then notch out a groove into the subfloor that the shower pan can fall into, then add some silicone, drop it into the groove, and that's it. Before dropping the shower pan into the floor, I installed one of these PVC plumbing rings so it's easier to plumb it from underneath. I then added some of this 100% silicone underneath, plopped it into the floor, and that was it. This is called the Encompass shower base. They custom make them and ship them directly to your house. I'll link them in the description below. We made sure that the shower basin would be pitched so that the water can go down the drain. Then we decided to add one of these little ledges so we can put things like shampoo bottles on, or to make it easier to shave your legs. Not that I shave mine. I then removed some insulation and added some blocking so we can install the shower niche. Then got straight to work so we can get all the curdy board installed onto the walls. We chose to use 1/2 inch curdy board because it's the easiest way to install walls onto your shower before adding any type of tile. But the main reason that we chose it is because it's really lightweight and we want to keep the weight down in this tiny home because after all it is on a trailer and we don't want to go over 14,000 pounds. But we then repeated the same process over and over until all the curdy board was installed. Now that all the curdy board is installed onto the walls, we mix together some of this mortar so we can waterproof all the cracks. This step was pretty straightforward. We basically spread a layer of the mortar onto the curdy board, then pressed down some of this curdy band to completely waterproof it. I tried to lay everything as flat as possible so that when I lay my tiles, they'll also lay nice and flat. For the corners, I just folded a piece of this curdy band in half, then stuck it into the corner, and that was it. But I then repeated the same process over and over until all the curdy band was installed. Now that the curdy board is installed, it's time to install the tile. But since there's a slope in the shower base, we're gonna have to cut the tile to match that slope so they can be nice and level. Before installing the tile, I spread a layer of 100% silicone in between the curdy board and the shower base just to seal it up so no water ever gets in there. The first row of tiles is gonna get silicone instead of mortar because the shower base is made out of corian, which is a solid surface material that mortar won't stick as well to, so that's why we're adding silicone instead. The rest of the tiles are going to get glued on with mortar, and we're using 1/4-inch spacers to space all them apart. But speaking of showers, I'm going to tell you guys a funny story. Over this past Christmas break, we went over to my wife's parents' house, and I went a little overboard drinking Moscow Mules. It was a great night, but I figured let me try and sober up before going to bed. So I decided to get into the shower, and that's where I made my first mistake. I fell over onto this porcelain soap dish and completely broke it off the wall. Somehow, someway, I didn't even have a scratch on me, and the craziest part is that it was like 1 in the morning, so everyone was asleep, and somehow nobody heard it. So now I gotta replace this porcelain soap dish, but I'm thinking I might just redo their whole shower. But let's get back to the video. Now that all the tiles are installed, I mixed together some of this sanded grout so I can fill in all these 1/4-inch gaps. Since the grout dries pretty fast, Hope and I decided to work as a team. I filled in all the cracks while she used a damp sponge to remove the excess. We then repeated the same process over and over until all the grout was installed. After finishing up all the grout, I used some more silicone to install the shower niche into the wall. And man oh man, this thing was starting to look freaking crazy. We then went ahead and installed the shower handle and the shower head, which really brought everything together, and we were honestly really impressed at how well everything turned out. But then just like that, the stand-up shower was completely installed. Now that the stand-up shower is finished up, it's time to install the toilet. I drilled a 3.5-inch hole into the subfloor, then glued on some PVC onto the toilet flange and slid it into the hole. I then made sure that the bolts to hold the toilet were the same distance from the wall and dry fit the toilet. Before permanently installing the toilet, we had to do a few things like installing the floor and adding some baseboards. I also added some silicone where the shower base meets the subfloor, just to reduce the amount of water that can get down there. Installing the baseboards before permanently mounting the toilet makes things a lot easier. And we also decided to install a couple other things like the plumbing for the toilet and the barn door. This is just a $200 door that we picked up on Amazon, and we decided to install a barn door instead of a regular one, just to try and save some space when you open and close it. We then capped off the entryway with some door trim, then brought the toilet into the bathroom to finally get it installed. I first flipped it over so I can install the wax ring, then fit the wax ring directly over the toilet flange and screwed it down. I then fit the tank into place and tightened that down as well. Installed the toilet seat, then ran the water supply to the tank, and that was it. After finishing up with the toilet, we wanted to install a small sink. When I framed out the bathroom, I made sure to add some blocking where the sink is going to go, just so it has something strong to hold on to. I crimped down the shutoff valves to the hot and cold water, then connected the sink faucet. I made sure to add a P-trap for the drain and plumbed it down toward underneath the tiny home. I then installed the trim around the bathroom window, which I've been procrastinating to do for about a month for some reason, and installed a medicine cabinet with a mirror right above the sink. To cap off the plumbing that's under the sink, I built this little box just to make things look a little better. I then crawled underneath the tiny home and connected all the plumbing pipes from the toilet, sink, and drain, and made sure to pitch the plumbing downward so all the water goes downhill. To hold up the plumbing, I picked up some of these galvanized metal strips and screwed them directly into the subfloor frame. I filled in all the gaps with spray foam, then just like that, all the plumbing was completely installed. After going on waterdropfilter.com and finding out that my tap water is not safe to drink, I decided to install one of these water filtration systems. This is a tankless reverse osmosis system that purifies water on demand, and if you know me, I'm obsessed with making sure we have clean drinking water, so installing one of these was a must. I drilled a hole into the sink and installed the faucet, then went underneath to connect the water supply and made sure to use Teflon tape to ensure this thing doesn't leak. This is a Water Drop X Series filtration system, and it's 75% smaller than the average RO filtration system, which saves you a ton of space under your sink, and it looks really nice too. It'll also save you a bunch of water with its 3:1 water ratio, and it also adds alkaline minerals back into the water as well. I then went up top to mess around with the settings a little bit, and what's super cool is that you can adjust the amount of ounces that this thing will spit out, which is perfect especially if you have some type of recipe that requires an exact measurement. It also has a special UV light that removes bad odors from the unit. If you guys want to get one, I'll link them in the description below. Now that the plumbing and the filtration system is installed, it's time to install the AC unit. This is a 12,000 BTU AC unit that's made by Costway, and it should be perfect to keep this tiny home nice and cool in the summer. After installing the mounting brackets, I wired up the electrical wires, connected the drip hose, then carefully bent back the copper lines so I can slide them through the hole that I put into the wall. I slid the copper lines, drip hose, and the electrical wires through the hole, then mounted the AC head. I then went outside and put together the mounting bracket that'll hold up the condenser unit. I had to notch out some of the board and batten on the exterior so I can mount down the mounting bracket, which I bolted directly into the studs, but then I installed the AC condenser and bolted that onto the bracket as well. I then had to connect the wire and the AC lines that we slid through the wall earlier into the AC condenser. So I took off the electrical cover and slid the wire through the hole so I can connect it to the bus bar. This was pretty straightforward. You just connect the corresponding wire to the letters on the bus bar and that's it. I then installed the copper lines, wrapped them in the AC tape that they gave me, then installed the cover. After connecting the wire and the copper lines, it was time to run the electrical. Since this is a 240 volt system, I'm using 10-3 Romex to connect it to my breaker panel. I'm running the wire through 1/2-inch conduit that I'm installing on the outside of the tiny home, which I measured and cut to size, and I used PVC cement to make sure it's 100% waterproof. I then ran my snake through the conduit, taped it, then pulled the wire through. And I couldn't have done it without the help of my wife, so if you're listening, thank you, honey. After running the wires through the conduit, we had to install a disconnect box in between the AC condenser and the breaker panel. We then wired the Romex into the AC condenser, installed a 30 amp breaker onto the panel, then called the AC technician to pump the lines filled with Freon, and that's it. This Costway air conditioner comes in a kit. If you guys want to get one, I'll link them in the description below. After the AC was installed, I wanted to wire up some lights on the outside of this tiny home. So I picked up these black exterior lights from Amazon for like 80 bucks, then got them installed. We then swept and vacuumed the entire tiny home and used our Viper Shield product in the shower to protect all the walls. Viper Shield is a product that my wife and I created a while back that protects all type of surfaces like tile, glass, mirrors, and paint. It's super hydrophobic and keeps surfaces cleaner for longer, so if you guys want to support the channel, get yourself a bottle. I'll link it in the description below. After cleaning everything up really nice, the entire tiny home was all finished up.